Good evening, everyone. Today is December 15th, 2022. And tonight we're conducting a Mayoral workshop regarding a presentation by Health and Equity Action Transformation, also referred to as H.E.A.T. Since this is a workshop, we will not be conducting meeting protocols nor taking a roll call. I do want to announce that we have individuals attending remotely as well as on site. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. When speaking, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so the public that is participating knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and its current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General's office. Please make sure that when you speak clearly into the microphone to ensure that all can hear the comments and the dictations that are being made. And it also helps us memorialize for the record. I'll recognize opening remarks from our presenters at this time who are here. If they would like, if someone could please come to the podium, let us know who you are, and I will let you all take the presentation from here. If you're more comfortable doing from the table, that's fine.
Hi, my name is Kim Weaver, she, her pronouns. I am the co-founder of Wyandotte Mutual Aid and a Kansas City, Wyandotte County resident.
My name is Donna Young, Executive Director for the Community Health Council of Wyandotte County. Also acted as the program manager for this H.E.A.T report when it was implemented in 2016. My pronouns are she, her, and we want to extend a thank you to the commissioners and the mayor for the invitation to come and present the H.E.A.T report. For some of you, this may be a review of information, but we're coming to you with some updated data sets that were updated in 2020. So we're pleased to bring some new information forward. This is a wonderful opportunity. So thank you very much. We're steering, so bear with us as we work through the technology here. And maybe perhaps we could get some help with the share screen to get us to the PowerPoint. Let's start with the PowerPoint, please. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So we'll start off. We've done a little bit of an introduction. I want to just highlight some of our H.E.A.T supporting partners. These are foundational partners that have supported with funding the report itself and the work that's happened over the last 6 years since the report was released, along with a number of our community-based partners, academic partners who've supported the work of H.E.A.T over the last 6 years. So a little about our H.E.A.T support team.
Community Health Council has been here for about 20 years, right?
Yes.
So there's 4 main programs: the Kansas Assistance Network, which helps people get insurance through like Medicaid, Medicare, and the marketplace. The Community Health Worker Program, which you all just funded, so thank you for that. They do things like help people navigate social determinants of health, which we'll discuss more later on. Cradle KC, which deals with infant mortality and maternal mortality rates and helps people have a system where they can work together and improve those. And the H.E.A.T report, which is what we'll be talking about tonight, well, today. NBC CDC is one of our partners, a faith-based organization that works on a wide range of projects to empower and provide services for Wyandotte County residents. And Groundwork Energy, a not-for-profit organization working to sustain and revitalize the Northeast Kansas community. The H.E.A.T Community Action Board is what Wyandotte Mutual Aid was birthed out of, what I co-founded. And it is a group of people that get together monthly to try to work on the problems that they see in Wyandotte County and see how we can best resolve them. And Wyandotte Mutual Aid. I do want to take time to acknowledge Broderick right there. He was with NBC CDC. I actually stepped in during his absence, so please forgive me. I'm new to this. I haven't been doing it for that long, so be patient with me.
We've presented the HEAT report now over about 300 times with our academic partners, community-based organizations, a number of community-facing presentations, and a number of the high schools here locally in Wyandotte County. So we've been doing this for a while. We've had a lot of great partners in the process. And you'll see Rachel in some of the videos and things on the webpage as well from Groundwork NRG. So we like to start with first things first.
This isn't a fun story to tell, but we do have to tell it. We are aware that it can get hard. But if it was a fun story to tell, we wouldn't be here because we wouldn't have to tell it. We will be talking about using language that includes race like Black, Indigenous, BIPOC, Hispanic, disabled, that can get uncomfortable. I just want you to know that. It does say original dot there. That's because of me. I am very proud to be from Wyandotte County, born and raised. Well, I guess it's because of Donna too, but it's because of me. And I have a pride in Wyandotte County, and I know that there's problems in it. But I'm also very sensitive about it because I love Wyandotte County. So I do ask for people to use empathy when they listen to the story. Generally, when we're talking to students and stuff, we ask for them to have empathy when we listen to the story. And that we do know that this is our story. We're in it together. Knowledge is the first step towards empowerment. And we try to be inclusive in all of this.
In the way that we speak about the data, in the way that we are reflecting on the fact that what we're presenting today is not just a set of statistics about the health of our county, but it's also representative of real life experiences and in the lives of the people that we love and care about as two individuals that were born and raised in this community and very much deeply care and want to take that strengths-based approach when we talk about what's happening in our county. So we ask for that across the board. So we're going to talk about factors that contribute to health.
Normally that part we would ask what did they think contribute to health, but we're not going to do that today because, we're going to slide right through that. So, and also we do know that this presentation is being done for you all, the mayors and commissioners, but please be patient with us. This is meant to be informational for everybody in the community, not just for us that are here in the room today. So when we think about social determinants of health, another phrase that's not as commonly used is social and political influences of health, but we're going to use this one, which is the most common descriptor. And we can just pull some of those out. Things that affect people and their health are like healthcare access, control of resources, language, school, early childhood education, family, housing. Those are just some of the things that are considered social determinants of health. This is the definition according to the World Health Organization. We're all able to read it, but to simplify it, it is everything that makes up your day-to-day living, where you live, work, and play. We use this slide to understand how much healthcare really plays a part. So approximately 20% is healthcare. I said 20% one time and got beat up because I didn't use approximately. So it is approximately 20% of is healthcare. The other 80% is the social determinants of health. The majority of what shapes our outcome is related to our socioeconomic factors, our environment, and our health behavior.
So these are all influencers of our overall health perspective. And when we are doing work in community and addressing the needs of the community, we also recognize that even when we're talking about health behaviors there are environmental influencers that are acting on our decision-making processes and influencing how we move about the world. And so when we talk about social determinants of health, we recognize, again, 80% of a person's total health has been influenced by those factors that are listed there.
And while we're on this, I want to point out that 50% of it can be traced back to your zip code. So it goes beyond just the choices that you're using, like to use alcohol or use tobacco. Marketing, advertising, the neighborhoods that you're in, everything has an effect on it. Like for me personally, me having a vehicle, I notice less liquor stores when I go to Johnson County than I do in Wyandotte County in the areas.
Absolutely. Thank you. So just a little bit of background about the HEAT report. So initially, when we started the process, the report, the data gathering process began in 2012. We were identifying populations that were affected by inequitable distributions of power and resources. We started with about 45,000 patient cases, information that was received from Children's Mercy Hospital and KU as two major providers for our community. And those 45,000 patient cases were laid out, sort of plotted on a map that became our hotspot map to identify health injustice. That hotspot map is in the report. You're welcome to view it. We're not going to view it today for the sake of time. But what we'll find is that as we go through the process of reviewing the data in the maps that we have on deck today, you'll find that we're visiting those same hotspot locations when we start looking at the social determinants of health and the way things are plotted in relationship to how space is outlined within our community. The report was really meant to explore origins of health injustice in Wyandotte County. And we wanted to inform community conversations and recognizing that our community is quite diverse, different levels of information and background and foundational understanding about health, about different topics that we cover in this process. We wanted to make it very accessible. And so the report is printed 65 pages, monster report, free to download, and we'll provide print copies if you're interested. But we also brought forward a series of comics that don't have words to make it very accessible to have those conversations, and a series of videos from our spokespersons and partners that are involved that help to summarize what's in the report for individuals that would like to have that available as well. And those are all available for free to download or view on www.wearewyandotte.com. So what do maps tell us and why do we look at them? Well, maps are really about helping us understand how people and situations are located when we think about a specific location like Wyandotte County or Kansas or the United States, et cetera. And it helps us understand the relationships between what's happening in those spaces, relationships that relate to knowledge and power, and helping us remember that these are not neutral images of reality, but they're really reflective of what's happening in our community. And that it is a reflection of the real life experiences of those that are living in our community. So we're going to look through a series of maps, and I think Kim's going to start us off with this one.
I am. So in case you haven't read a map, that's something that people aren't doing anymore. There are titles at the top that'll tell you what the maps are about. There's a key with the colors on the side that give you an idea what the colors are. What the numbers are. Like, for the example, the dark purple is 36 to 43. So people who are looking at it online, you'll be able to go through under the different topics like over 65, under 18, poverty, child poverty, poverty over 65, linguistic isolation, all of those. Those are all tabs that you can go through on We Are Wyandotte. But for this map specifically, I wanted to make sure that people understood what Wyandotte County looked like. So Wyandotte County is the smallest county in Kansas. It's 156 square miles. The northeast loop, so the loop on the right, but kind of at the top, that is, thank you for highlighting that, Donna. That is the Fairfax loop. It's industrial. It's a gray space it's the gray space right there. If you look under Coronado and next to Armadale, that is that gray space right there is the third largest train intermodal in the nation. So we have 3 major railroads that go there. Both of these contribute to the level of pollution in Wyandotte County. There are 5 major highways: I-70, 35, 635, 670, and 435. Did I run through those too quick for you to point them out?
You're it's a little quick, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So 635.
635,
I-70, I think that's right.
yep, the turnpike.
Yep.
Okay.
435.
435.
Here.
Yep. 635 is
This one.
right through there. Yep. And then 670, which is a little offshoot of 70.
It's right in here.
Yep.
It's right in that area.
And then there's 3 state highways that I won't ask you to find, Donna.
Thank you.
K5, K7, and K32. And I point these all out because 1 out of 3 households in Wyandotte County don't have access to a vehicle. So they don't have ways to go through or navigate all of these different challenges in Wyandotte County.
Thank you. So we're going to look through a series of maps today and really look at what this is telling us about about our health in Wyandotte County. And this is where it's going to get interesting because we're going to go out of the PowerPoint. We're going to navigate straight from the We Are Wyandotte webpage, which should be pulled up, and there it is. So if you all could check and make sure this is screen sharing properly, then we can roll. Okay, great. Thank you. So as Kim mentioned, the titles are located across the top. And so individuals that are following at home or want to review this later, you can click through the top. These are interactive maps, so you can scroll in and out. They're quite detailed. So you can find your census tract location, your neighborhood, your address. And as you click on each of these, it will bring up a pop-up box that gives you an overview for that census tract that includes the data that we're covering today. So very interactive and accessible. This particular map takes a look at, so as we're looking at what we view to be vulnerable or oppressed populations, communities that are facing barriers to accessing basic needs. What we find is we look for those populations of individuals that have a higher rate of carrying that burden of limited access for various reasons. Children under the age of 18 are often at the whim of what is accessible and don't have the resources, right, as young people to go and grab what they need on their own. And so we view them to be individuals that are limited. And so our children, the populations of what we see here, this is data as of updated through 2020. So it goes from 2016 through 2019. So based off this information, when you look at the percentage of children under 18 by census tract, we see quite a large population of children 35 to, I'm gonna not see that number, Kim, if you can help me, 51%.
51.
In the dark blue portions here, and along this area. And then the second gradation of blue, the brighter blue, if you will, still a large population of children in those census tracts. About 30% of those census tracts are children under the age of 18. That green is still 25 to 30%, and then 14 to 23% in the lightest color that is there. So large population of children living in these communities.
Before Donna moves on, I want to point out that little purple area that looks like a bow. Those numbers are a little off because there's not as many houses there. So they're going to look different in every one of these. And so I just want to acknowledge that now.
Yeah, you have a lot of kids in a tiny population and it looks really big on the map. So that's that area that's not densely populated. So we usually just disregard that one. We look at our older adult population. So these are older adults over age 65. That dark purple color, we're looking at 17 to 25%. So in some cases, almost a quarter of that population being over age 65. The blue 12 to 17%. The green there 8 to 12% in those neighborhoods and in those census tracts. The next map takes a look at the percentage of individuals who are under the poverty income guideline. And so we understand there's a large population here along the eastern half of the county where we start to see that income level at 36 to 64%, the population that's below the federal poverty line. The blue is 23 to 36%. The green is 12 to 23%. And then we start to see that go down in the lighter colors there at, I think it's, I can't quite read it, 4 to 12%, I think is what that says. And I just took, oh, go ahead. Oh, it's 1.4. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Kim. I appreciate that. In the report on page 15, we have a chart that outlines the living wage for Wyandotte County residents. And it's based off the living wage calculator that MIT puts out annually. And I just went back today out of curiosity to look at the data from 2016. And in 2016, two working adults with two children, let's say the hourly rate in order to have a livable wage that would sustain the household for all of the needs was about $14 if both parents were working full time. And as of today, when I went back to check that wage calculator, the same two working adults, both working full time with two children, would each need to make $23.93 per hour in order to be able to sustain the basic needs of the household. Yes.
Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you. I'm sorry, 2016 was what?
2016, two working parents, 2 children. Each parent would need to make $14.07 per hour. 2022, 2 parents both working full-time with 2 children would each need to make $23.93 per hour.
Thank you.
So it's the cost of living to sustain, right, a household with some of your basic needs overall has more than doubled. Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Burrows.
Thank
has a
you.
question.
I believe if you're saying $23 an hour, that's 46,000 a year roughly for a family of 4. But the average income in Wyandotte County doesn't come close to that.
That is per person. So you need to double that number. 2 parents both working at $23.93 per
That's
hour.
80
So that
would be 80-some thousand
Yes,
dollars a
sir.
year.
that is
But
correct.
my point being, the average income in our community is nowhere near that.
It is not currently. It is not currently. Actually, I pulled that statistic as well before we came in today. Average median household income per Kansas Health Matters 2022 is $48,093 per household in Wyandotte County. So this is hugely impactful. Income is hugely impactful in accessing vital resources and improving our health overall. And we have quite a portion of the population that's below that federal poverty level, not to mention not making enough quite to sustain that household. Children that are living in the households that are below poverty level, in some census tracts, we're looking at half to almost 75% who are in that category. So again, hugely vulnerable when it comes to not having access to vital resources, food, childcare opportunities, medical services, and not to mention all of the other things that we need to survive, especially right now when it's cold. This map takes, and this is the hard part, I'm so sorry. This is the hard part of what we do. It becomes very challenging, right, to communicate this information. And again, recognizing that health is impacted and that these are real people and their lives are being impacted. Language isolation, anytime that we add an additional barrier to accessing health, it has to do with having individuals that can communicate in the same way that you communicate becomes a barrier. There are census tracts here highlighted in the dark purple where you have 18 to 46%. Thank you. I need to go get my eyes checked here. 18 to 46% who have some linguistic isolation, making it more challenging to access vital resources. In the lighter blue color, we're still looking at almost 10 to 20%, and then gradations from there. And you may start to notice as we work through these maps that we continue to go back to the same portion of the map and the same portion of the county kind of repetitively here with these. And so these are communities that are experiencing multiple barriers at one time, so hugely impactful. This map takes a look at unemployment rate from 2015 to 2019. So this is prior to the pandemic. And it looks a little different overall for the county today, post-pandemic. I think at the height of the pandemic, we were somewhere close to 15% unemployment rate overall for the county. And according to this data, we have census tracts that have experienced that rate continuously over years. So 15 to 20, what is that number? Can you see it? 23, thank you. 15 to 23% in some census tract unemployment rate. This was as 2019. So this number would look a little bit different post-pandemic as we've all experienced those challenges. We talked already about median household income. This is the map from 2015 to 2019 that takes a look at that median household income by census tract. You can see the dark purple in this one represents 75 to 113,000 for median household income, and the way that that gradation occurs based off income levels moving here into the eastern portion of the county. These lighter colors are 12 to 26%, or I'm sorry, 12,000 to 26,000 median household income. This predominant one step up lighter blue color, 26,000 to almost 40,000 in those census tracts on average, which is between this and this lighter blue is right around where the median income level is for the entirety of the county. That deeper blue there is 38 to 51,000 median household income. Individuals who are experiencing any sort of event that would cause them to be unable to work or experiencing a disability. We see the concentration in 3 main census tracts. We do know that there are some multi-family units in those census tracts that are, units that house quite a lot of people that are experiencing a disability. And then those areas that ranges from, I think that's 25 to 29%, the orange 17 to 23%, and then the gradation going down from there in individuals living with a disability. And although what happens in a clinical setting may only represent approximately 20% of what influences a person's health overall, individuals in our community are often experiencing multiple chronic disease events at one time. And what we understand from a lot of community listening in the last 6 years is that individuals are often delaying care and treatment for chronic diseases. Sometimes they're undiagnosed and or uninsured and lack the means to address those chronic diseases. This report takes a look, or this map takes a look at the percentage of uninsured in our county. This is 2015 through 2019, so some changes post-pandemic. There is not an updated number for this as of yet. But the darker color that you see there on the map is about 30 to 42% that do not have healthcare insurance coverage, adults, and then 22 to 30% in the next gradation of color, still 15 to 22% in that broader mid-range tone. And moving down the gradation from there. And so these individuals are relying on our safety net partners and or oftentimes emergency room utilization to address chronic disease needs. And I don't know if you've ever spent any time in an emergency room lately, but you're gonna get an immediate fix, but you might not have a solution long term, and that becomes a challenge. And we see people going back and back and back to the emergency room to address their chronic disease needs.
We have a question from Commissioner
Yes.
Bynum.
Donna, I know you and your team did a lot of work when the ACA rolled out enrolling Wyandotte,
Yes.
and the number of folks that you and others were able to enroll was significant. But
Yes.
we knew the number of uninsured, and we dropped it significantly through ACA. But do you know, from then to now, like how many have been able to stay insured because of that, or have some of them lost coverage or not renewed or what have you? Do you have
Yeah.
that?
So there's a couple of pieces at play. So Community Health Council, in partnership with the UG Public Health Department, rolled out the Enroll Wyandotte initiative with the ACA. And over the 5 years of that initiative, we were able to reduce the uninsured rate in the county by about 50%, which was fantastic. There are multiple factors that are contributing to individuals that remain uninsured. We have a lot of people that fall in the Medicaid gap because Kansas has not expanded Medicaid coverage for adults. There are a lot of individuals that don't make enough money to get a discount through the marketplace. And so that the cost of healthcare insurance remains out of range, out of reach, because they're in a gap space that makes them ineligible. And there are other factors that have to do with status and documentation that would also make individuals ineligible.
But what about, so you're giving those examples as reasons why someone may have originally enrolled in that 50% drop we experience, but maybe today don't have coverage.
And did not qualify at that time as well.
Okay.
There may be individuals still that did not qualify.
I'm sorry. The number of individuals or percentage that don't have current health coverage right now, is that in this map?
This is by census tract, and it gives you the rate by census tract. The overall rate per Kansas Health Matters for 2019, so pre-pandemic, is 27.9%. So nearly 1 in 3 adults in our county being uninsured prior to the pandemic.
1 in 3, and that was after enroll Wyandotte.
That's after enroll Wyandotte.
And, okay, fair enough, thanks.
Yes. This map takes a look at our children who are also uninsured. So that the darker, sort of a dark purple or a dark navy color, 18 to 35%. So almost 1 in 3 children in those census tracts who do not have healthcare coverage. There's the purple that you see here, I believe that is 9. Thank you, 9 to 18%. It's a little challenging. I don't have my glasses today. I apologize. That are children that are uninsured, and then the gradation colors that go from there. Factors that contribute to this also have to, in some cases, can do with status. The child may be eligible, but the parents are not, and fear may push someone to not seek to enroll their child. We also have, there's a lot of administrative burden in play that a child that may be enrolled may go beyond their period of enrollment and not get a renewal notice. Family has relocated. Parents didn't go through the process to renew the child through Medicaid coverage. And so children are dropped off of Medicaid, and often it takes some time to re-enroll them. So we see all of that, all of those things at play in that as well. Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's actually great timing because we're going to go back into this PowerPoint to this for a little bit. So everything we reviewed is population level data. It's all accessible through a variety of resources. The majority of the information that we're sharing today is coming from the census information and or from Kansas Health Matters. So one of the things that came out of our partnership with the Kirwan Institute for the Study of Race and Ethnicity from the Ohio State University is Kirwan Institute does a comprehensive opportunity index. So it says all of that map data individually is compelling, but what does it look like for the lived experience of the people that are living in these communities and for our, our friends and neighbors. And so they look at 19 different indicators that help to create a full picture of what that burden looks like, that burden of either having no or limited access to resources and opportunities for health, or being more proximate to those opportunities and having fewer barriers. And so we look at education, 19 different indicators. So educational opportunity, looking at, again, talking about poverty rates in neighborhood schools, math reading proficiency levels, access to high quality early childhood education, high school graduation rates, adult education attainment, taking a look at what's happening with the health and the environment in the areas in the census tracts where people live. So how proximate are they to having access to doctors and physicians and healthcare facilities? How much access is there to healthy food in the environment? So proximity to grocery stores, proximity to toxic waste release sites, the volume of nearby toxic release, proximity to parks and open spaces, which is a protective factor, and then housing vacancy rates. We also look at social and economic opportunities. So things like unemployment, poverty, public assistance rates, proximity to employment, and foreclosure rates. And those 19 different indicators are all brought together, overlaid to create one community opportunity or comprehensive opportunity index.
Before she moves on, I just want to point out that only 3 of those indicators are related to like food and exercise. The other 16 are related to things that are their environmental issues or concerns.
Thank you. So we're going to go back to the interactive version of that map. I think I lost the mouse. I think we might be back, maybe. Thank you. We still don't have a mouse. IT support partners might be my favorite people in the whole world. And we're back. That is in the legacy maps. I think are back there. So we lay those 19 factors that we just talked about all together and take a look at the opportunity index. We look at areas of high opportunity and areas of low opportunity. So the very high areas of opportunity are in the darker brown or red, however it shows on your screen. This area portion here, which is Western Wyandotte County, Edwardsville and Bonner. We have areas around KU in Rosedale that are high areas of opportunity based off those 19 factors. And then this area just south near the Turner area. As we look at the gradation of colors and we start to look at those areas of lower opportunity where we find significant portions of our population that are experiencing health challenges, then we start to see those lower areas of opportunity. And we started to ask ourselves, who is carrying the burden, the largest burden when it comes to low access to opportunities? And what we did is we overlaid the Kirwan Institute Opportunity Index map over the predominant race by each of the census tracts. So when we take a look at that information, we start to see which portions of our population are really carrying the largest burden of low opportunity in this space. So when we look at this information, we have our African American and Black population here in blue, Hispanic population, Latino population in yellow. We have some that are closely white Hispanic or white Latino, and then populations where we have a split between African American and Caucasian here in this area. But you can see that those areas where we have the lowest areas that are lowest access, greatest burden of low opportunity are predominantly for our Black, Indigenous, and people of color in our county. which-
Before you move on,
Yes,
a little more clarity on low and high opportunity.
yes.
Can you be just plain speak? What does that generally mean in the context of what you're displaying?
When we take into consideration those 19 factors, what we're really looking at is lower access to quality childcare, lower access to quality employment opportunities that raise people's household incomes, lower access to vital resources like transportation and food. There may be situations where there's lack of opportunity for support services for education, right? Enrichment opportunities, tutoring, et cetera. All of those factors, right, playing a role in how this is shaping the population, right? And so as that burden increases, if it's harder to get those basic needs met, and we've already seen that these are some of the same neighborhoods where the median household income is lower. There's greater individuals that are either children or older adults are disabled. We start to see that layering effect that contributes to challenges to access those vital resources. If you don't have healthcare insurance and you have a chronic disease, it's going to inhibit you from having quality employment, right? It's going to inhibit you from being able to purchase a vehicle or to have a home that is safe and meets the needs of the family. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. That's why we always preface this presentation that it's difficult conversation. As our families and loved ones are part of these populations that we're concerned for. All right, so what does all of this mean? All of this data that we just reviewed.
So when we say that Wyandotte County residents experience the burdens of multiple social determinants of health all at once, we're talking again about lack of access to education, to affordable housing, to jobs, to transportation. When we talk about it's a complex adaptive challenge, there's many layers to it because again, if you're disabled and you don't have access to transportation, you're not going to be able to get access to the job that would help you to get a place that you will be able to stay or access to food. Chronic stress can be become a way of life. We experience that all the time in Wyandotte County, regardless of where you're in the county, but we do experience it. People who live in the Northeast, because I don't experience it more than people average in the county. And then, but our community is resilient. There are people of strength, passion, and skill and grit. So I want to talk about this photo because this is Broderick's photo, y'all. And he used to tell a story about it and talked about how this family could look like they're a couple, but they're not. It's two different families in a congregation, both that have experienced child loss. And they didn't know about it until their church, New Bethel, started addressing infant mortality. So they didn't know that a significant portion of the church had experienced it. I believe 20 incidents were in the church at the time when they started addressing it. But one of the first times I did this presentation, because I just started doing it, I was telling a story and a lady that I know we both are out working in the community said, "That's my husband. This is my husband. This is my story." I didn't know that we would be talking about my story today. And it affected me personally because I didn't know she had experienced child loss and she didn't know I had experienced it. And we have been navigating the same circles, talking about her daughter's a pageant girl. She's amazing from Wyandotte County, in case you don't know. But we've been navigating these circles and going to do all these things together. And we didn't even know that we both in the county had experienced loss of child.
So we really wanted to understand the link between race and health, and understanding race as a social determinant of health.
And this also would normally be someplace where we'd ask the class, but we're not going to ask y'all to participate.
Little pop quiz, what is redlining? We're going to talk about redlining, so we're going to jump right into that here.
So redlining is a discriminatory practice by which banks, insurance companies, et cetera, refuse or limit loans, mortgages, and insurance. It was and is a legal way to deny services to people. And I say is because a lot of times people look at redlining as something in the past. And if you just do a Google search, you'll find there are practices that are still in play that mimic what redlining was doing. So the Homeowner Loan Corporation, the federal government sent out surveyors into the community to assign values to neighborhood. These were government employees and government documents. There was a grading scale. If you look at this right here, again, that little loop at the top, that's Fairfax again. So it's not a big portion of Wyandotte County. This is it. There was 239 cities that this was done in. Kansas City was one of the first that it happened in because of J.C. Nichols. So right across the river, we were one of the first people to do redlining. If you look at it though, there is no, the map says the green is first grade, B, the blue is second grade, C is yellow is third grade, and D, red is fourth grade. There are no green in Wyandotte County. So there was nothing about Wyandotte County that they thought was the first grade. If you look at the blue sections, one section is Wyandotte High School, the other is West Heights. The one up at the top is right next to the Fairfax. They thought that might be where the supervisors for Fairfax live. And the other one I thought was Coronado, but it was not. And I just saw it as a map in Johnson County. There's an amazing exhibit in Johnson County for redlining. If you want to go see it, you should go see it, but it ends early next month. So I have to come back with what that was because I can't remember what it is. But again, there was no first grade in Wyandotte County. We had some second grade, very sparse of that, and then third grade and fourth grade.
So these ratings were used by banking industry and really the federal government in an effort to assist with refinancing after the Depression. So 1930s is when all of this really developed and started, really to advise financiers about where to lend for people to purchase homes. And so it was a determinant factor on whether or not somebody would have access to be able to purchase a home at that time. Today, we look at a person's individual credit. We look at the neighborhood, which again could fall sometimes into some other practices, but the house itself and credit is how we assess today. In the 1930s all the way through the 1960s, decisions about financing for homes was often made based off these descriptors rather than about an individual's ability and access to be able to finance a home and pay for it. And so those assessors that went out into communities took time to survey, and they wrote narrative descriptions about what they saw in the neighborhoods that informed the way the grading system was done. And in our report, we took those narratives and we placed them into what's called a Wordle. It's a data tool to help assign weight to particular words that are used repetitively in a paragraph or in a series of text. And so the Wordle was used with the narratives that were done in those neighborhoods, and this is the outcome.
Normally at this point, again, we would ask you what words did you see in the Wordles, but of course we have some that are highlighted, like in the B areas, professional, business, new, restricted. In the C areas, which were the not as good areas, but they were wage earners, good, again, wage earners on there. And then when you get to the red ones, you have Negroes, industrial poor, laborers. What you don't see as much because it's not highlighted is it says in very little writing next to Negroes, it says Mexicans and foreigners. And that also transportation was an issue still then.
So the weight of the words, the way that they're listed here, the larger the word, the more times that word was used in the paragraph, which implies significance when it comes to how that informed the way financing was done. So race was absolutely an indicator, and it played a direct role, which is why we talk about redlining being a form of institutional racism that directly shaped the way our neighborhoods look today. Was hoping maybe this one would work in the PowerPoint. It's really not wanting to, I don't think. So what this did is we could go to it, but I think in this interest of time, we'll describe it. So there's a map that looks at that red line map over that predominant race by neighborhood that we've already taken a look at. And the demographic makeup of the neighborhoods today are very reflective of the way the redlining maps were done at the time in the 1930s. So there's still quite a lot of individuals living in these communities that are family members, descendants of the individuals that would have experienced redlining in the 1930s and continue to face the burdens of that today.
So when we look at the history of neighborhood disinvestment, we have to realize that this environment didn't just happen. It was formed. We have to look at the policies that shape what Wyandotte County looks like today. Again, as Donna mentioned earlier, from the 1930s to the 1960s, there was a series of policies used to segregate and isolate communities of color. And normally at this time, we would ask the students, what are policies that are in place now that are still harmful to community of color? But y'all aren't students, so we're not going to do that.
So we've got a video that goes into more detail about some of what we've been describing. And this is from Newsreel, California Newsreel. So we're going to go ahead and play this and hopefully the sound works. We tested it. It worked earlier, so fingers crossed.
It was a time when hundreds of thousands of GIs came home ready to start families, but had no place to live.
In the 1930s, the federal government created the Federal Housing Administration, whose job it was to provide loans or the backing for loans to average Americans so they could purchase a home.
Federal programs and banks sank millions into the home construction industry. Their message to veterans: you can afford a new home. Buy a new home now. Tax dollars help make the single-family home a mass-produced consumer item. The American Eugene Burnett came home with almost 1 million other Black GIs. They had fought for the country in segregated ranks. They returned hoping for equality and the American dream.
Created the Federal Housing Administration, whose job it was to provide loans or the backing for loans to average Americans so they could purchase a home.
Federal programs and banks sank millions into the home construction industry. Their message to veterans: you can afford a new home. Buy a new home now. Tax dollars help make the single-family home a mass-produced consumer item. The American dream had a new name: suburbia.
We came to Levittown and we found the model house, and we walked in and we looked around, and of course, in the eyes of a young man who was raised in the ghetto, so to speak, it was an interesting experience, interesting lifestyle, seeing all the new modern conveniences, very fascinating.
Eugene Burnett came home with almost 1 million other Black GIs. They had fought for the country in segregated ranks. They returned hoping for equality and the American dream. For many, that dream was a new home for little money down and some of the easiest credit terms in history.
I went up to the salesman. We're interested in your home. We're interested in buying one. And what is the procedure? Is there an application to be filled out? So forth. So he looked at me, looked around, and he said to me, he says, listen, it's not me, but the owners of this development have not as yet decided to sell these homes to Negroes.
The FHA underwriters warned that the presence of even 1 or 2 non-white families could undermine real estate values in the new suburbs. These government guidelines were widely adopted by private industry. Race had long played a role in local real estate practices. Starting in the 1930s, government officials institutionalized a national appraisal system where race was as much a factor in real estate assessment as the condition of the property. Using this scheme, federal investigators evaluated 239 cities across the country for financial risk.
So that those communities that were all white, suburban, and far away from minority areas, they received the highest rating, and that was the color green. Those communities that were all minority or in the process of changing, they got the lowest rating, and the color red. They were redlined. As a consequence, most of the mortgages went to suburbanizing America, and it suburbanized it racially.
As homes in white communities appreciated in value, the net worth of these white families grew. For most non-white families who stayed in urban neighborhoods, the housing market open to them in the 50s and 60s was largely a rental market. You don't gain equity by paying rent.
Where one's family lives in America is not just a matter of taste and preference. You have the issue of housing and wealth. The majority of Americans hold most of their wealth in the form of home equity. So that's their nest egg. That's how they can finance the education of their offspring. That's how they can sort of save up for retirement. It's their savings bank, right? They're living in their savings bank.
My family, like a lot of families, was in Detroit, struggling to buy a house. You had a dual housing market, one white, one black. A housing market with one with a lot of demand, another housing market with very little demand. My father lives in the house that I grew up in. The house today, 5-bedroom house, is worth about $20,000. That same house bought in the suburbs would be worth today about $320,000. So whites moving to the suburb were being subsidized in the accumulation of wealth, while blacks were being divested.
And these were public policy decisions in which, on one hand, people were given access to property, given title and subsequently wealth. And on another hand, where people were not given access to property, did not generate wealth, and did not generate the kind of opportunity for the next generation.
So it talks about housing, and I just want to lift this up. Some information that I saw this week was on average in our county, individuals who are renting spend nearly 50%, or I'm sorry, 50% of all renters are spending more than 30% of their monthly income on rent payments. So let me say that again. Half of our community that rents spends more than 30% of their monthly income on their rent. That means it leaves about 2/3 of their income for all of those other necessities. And we know that once you get over that 30% threshold, it becomes very difficult to sustain your home and your household. Wyandotte County residents pay about 8% of their monthly income for utilities. Individuals who own their homes, about 1/3 of our community who is paying their mortgage is also over that 30% of their monthly income threshold. So direct impact to housing when we're talking about these things right here in our community as well.
So when we look at what are some of the impacts of the histories on Wyandotte County today, redlining led to systematic disinvestment, which also turned into decreased property values, declining and poor health outcomes. It also led to the predatory lending and property values loss, which also goes into like crime and safety, infant mortality, which I'll be talking about for a brief second later on, low birth weight, asthma. So we have higher rates of asthma and diabetes. It's prevalent in Wyandotte County. Wyandotte County, as we know, regularly ranks at the bottom of state health rankings. Foreclosures and vacancies. We think about things like tax sales and people being displaced from their homes that they've been in for years, for decades, even for, how asset wealth loss, dwindling tax base, racial wealth gap, declining cities, services and maintenance.
Thanks, Kim. We've sit in enough sessions with commissions to know that you wrestle with decision-making around how to allocate resources. And what we're looking at in our formerly redlined or redlined neighborhoods is a cycle that continues to feed itself, right? So it's this disinvestment or lack of investment that has cascaded into decreased property values, erosion of the tax base, right, which directly impacts everything that you all do as well. And the pain isn't just felt in this room, it's felt by all of those individuals that are living in the neighborhoods. And right now in our community, about 20% of people who are housed in Wyandotte County, so not including unhoused people, but just housed people, are dealing with severe housing problems that are having a direct impact to their health as well, right? So all of this contributes to poor health outcomes. And we know that asthma, lead exposure, diabetes, all of that is directly related to this situation. And we'll see that this has already been hard. We're about to get into a few more slides that are hard, and then we hope there's a little light to bring you today. So jump into presentation mode and catch it up. Maybe. Here we go.
So I know you'll be able to read this slide for yourself, but I just want to point out a few things. According to the CDC in 2019, the acceptable amount of deaths during infant mortality deaths were 5.6 deaths per 1,000. Kansas was beating the goal. Wyandotte County is not. The national level for Black non-Hispanic was deaths were 10.8. Wyandotte County was 12.9. Nationally for Hispanic people, the number was 4.9. And here in Wyandotte County, it was 8.2 per 1,000 births. So that's a problem. And we have to address it.
Infant mortality is important as a consideration because it is often one of the key indicators of the overall health of a community, and having an infant mortality rate that is higher than it is in the state of Kansas and higher than it is nationally is indicative of the challenges that our community is facing when it comes to accessing their vital resources for health. We know that one of the major factors that we're looking at and why we have high fetal infant mortality rates has to do with low birth weight. Again, directly reflective of the overall health. And oftentimes families that are dealing with chronic stress that plays a role in their health outcomes. We did just tap on our friends at the health department to say, you know, in 2017, this is what it looks like. What does it look like today? And the current rates, if we look at just at those factors that are listed there for African-American families, the infant mortality rate on average for the last 5 years is 11.4 deaths per 1,000 live births. For Wyandotte County, it's at 7.2, and the state of Kansas is at 6.0. And that's data from 2016 through 2020. So it does not include the height of the pandemic and post-pandemic numbers. We're going to jump back into the webpage here. We have an interactive story map that looks at average age of death. Since we looked at the front of the life cycle, we'll look at the back end of the life cycle here. Yeah, 15 minutes, right? Okay, we have 15 minutes. We're gonna try and go through this. Maybe we'll just summarize. So average age of death disparity from Eastern Wyandotte County to Western Wyandotte County. So not looking at Wyandotte County compared to Johnson County, is currently about 24 years. So 24 years average age of death disparity between Eastern and Western portion of the county. And it's greater than that when we compare ourselves to our neighbors in the South in Johnson County.
Are you able to show that map?
I am, yes.
I was trying to help her be timely.
It's an important one.
I understand.
Yeah. So this is that eastern portion of the county. And you can see that the gradation or the scoring for average age of death in the census tracts that are marked in red are age 58 to 63. The orange is, and I'm having trouble seeing it, 63 to 67.
65 to 67.
Thank you.
So the red is 58 to 65.
Go ahead.
Okay, and the yellow is 67 to 70, the light blue is 70 to 72, and the darker blue is 72 to 81, almost 82, 81.6.
You can see how that lays out for the county based off census tract. This data was pulled together, compiled from death certificate data is how it's pulled. The maps do go into information about different types of diseases that contribute to the lower health outcomes. So we have heart disease, cancer mortality, respiratory disease mortality, stroke mortality, additional information, again, that you can access through the We Are Wyandotte webpage for more information.
By chance, can you go back? There was a map you showed that actually showed the racial makeup component and how that relates. I think that's really key when you talk about the mortality rates of our residents in the eastern portion, and then how that correlates to the racial makeup in those areas where the mortality seems to be the highest.
Yeah, I'll pull that map up right now. I don't have a fancy little overlay with the average age of death disparity, but you can visualize it based off what we just saw, that it is our Black, Indigenous, and people of color that largely carry the burden of lower health overall that contributes to an earlier average age of death in those census tracts.
And those areas represent also those 19 factors that you listed.
That is correct. Those factors that have a direct impact both on health in prenatal, perinatal, postnatal, so maternal child health, but also average age of death. And again, oftentimes we've done a number of listening sessions as we rolled this report out. We started in 2016 meeting with community residents, hearing their stories, understanding what this data meant to them and what does the lived experience look like, right? The data is one thing, what is the lived experience? And what we found is that oftentimes we have individuals that are delaying care, that have multiple chronic diseases. I can recall one particular mother and grandmother who at the time was 40 years old, was helping to care for her children and her parents as well. And she had worked for a major telecommunication company for 8 years, had healthcare insurance, and was managing her health when she had insurance. She lost her job, was without insurance, was unable to see a physician. She had hypertension. I met with her in May and we had a series of listening sessions, and she was one of our spokesperson. And we lost her in July that year because of a managed hypertension. So this is what people are living with every single day.
So if I'm taking this correct, the redlining correlates directly to the disinvestments, which correlates to the disenfranchisement, which ultimately is costing people their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably could have summarized the entire presentation right there. Thank you. Normally when we present with students and community-based organization partners, we have open discussion. We talk through that. And for the sake of time, we'll skip that portion today, but there are some things to lift up.
So again, there's nothing natural about today's community health landscapes or the challenges it presents. We do have to think about policy and the policies that have been in place and the policies that are in place right now and the effects that they have on our community. We look at things in the past to know what the direction that we're going to in the future. So policies have long-term and residual and sometimes unforeseen impacts. Consideration of past policy choices can inform thoughtful design of present-day solutions. Values influence policy. You have to actively seek to change these things that have been going on because, I mean, they're in the laws. So we have to have the values and the desire to make the change for the people that are unable to make the changes. Values infuse policy, shape systems, which in turn can help either produce health and prosperity for all, or create barriers to good health and opportunity for some. Significant change begins through coordinated efforts and focus on principles of equity and inclusion. I tussle with using the word equity because I feel like it's overused right now. I think people use it and think of it as equality, and it's not. So I like to say justice there instead of equity. And today's inequitable health landscape did not emerge overnight. Enduring solutions will require taking a long view of incremental progress and commitment of community that extends beyond election cycles, institutional turnovers in all sections.
When we received the invitation to come and present, I thought to myself, and I asked him, I'm like, what do we want to leave? Like, what is the overarching call to action for our friends in the mayor and the commissioners? And I think this talk about equity and justice is really important. And each one of you walk into this room with your own set of values and understanding of what that means. And I think from an overall perspective, I would challenge our local commission, our administrators, to really have equity in the forefront of your minds and understanding where values may be motivating different policy decisions, right? Because it does play a role. And so I think it's important to always have that lens when evaluating the decisions that you're making about how funding is being allocated, where work is being done, et cetera. If you think of the county as a body, the heart of our county is right here on the eastern portion, right? The history of Kansas City, Kansas, and Wyandotte County is right where we're sitting. And we have to take care of our heart and our body if we want to be healthy. And to Kim's point, you've probably seen this before. It's a visual to kind of illustrate the difference between equality and equity. And equality means that each one of these individuals that are trying to see the game have the same resource in order to be able to see the game. It may be a resource that doesn't necessarily fit for each person to achieve the goal of being able to see the game. Equity would imply that we provide the tool and resource that actually does help that person achieve the end goal of being able to see the game. And I don't know that this is completely accurate in and of itself. Because the reality that we're living with is what is there on the left. That because of policies like redlining, part of our community do not yet have what is equal to others in their community in order to achieve that result. And to the point that was made by John C. Powell in the video that we watched, many communities were subsidizing the wealth that they were able to achieve. And so we see the reality is that some individuals have quite the advantage in order to have that perspective. The call to action then is to change the system and to remove the barriers that are preventing people from having, right, the access to the end goal here, which what we're talking about today is health. And for all of Wyandotte County to have every opportunity, every resident to achieve their full health potential. So systems change is necessary, environmental change is necessary, and changing the way we think about what's contributing to health outcomes is absolutely necessary. So what are we doing? At the Community Health Council, Kim mentioned that there are 4 program lanes that we operate within. Over the last few years, we've shifted some of the work in order to address COVID, but we have 20 community health workers that are directly working to address the social determinants of health, that are directly working to address the barriers, that are directly working to help people find the resources and tools to achieve that optimum health opportunity, whatever that potential might be. And meeting people where they are and understanding those lived experiences. And community health workers are employed, they're members of the community, they're members of the community that understand the barriers that are being faced, and they can oftentimes deconstruct what is very complex challenges with systems and access and administrative burden and help people find the resources that they need to address whatever that immediate opportunity is for health. We have a number of civic engagement initiatives that are underway. We work directly with community. A number of our projects are led and directed by community through the H.E.A.T Community Advisory Board that deal directly with civic engagement. We understand, and I think it's been published routinely in the last 2 years, that a person's level of civic engagement is also a social determinant of health. The more engaged your voters are, the more likely they are to have a healthier outcome with their lives. We want to work to increase access to vital resources, including healthcare, and our Kansas Assistance Network allows us to do that. And we have maternal community health workers that are working directly with birthing families and care providers for infants in that first year of life to help them address some of those challenges that are preventing optimum health. And then we really look to develop the leadership of the community residents that are engaged and want to do this work. Kim and the other co-founder and a number of other H.E.A.T CAB members have been instrumental in human-centered design approaches and initiatives and projects that work to address gaps in the social systems that exist here in Wyandotte County. I can't remember all the data, but I think you all raised somewhere like $25,000 during COVID in order to address immediate needs to keep people in homes, to provide clothing, to provide food, to address the individuals that weren't able to access those vital resources through the social systems for a number of reasons, a lot of it being administrative burden. And really just that deep engagement and to invite community into the solution making process, because if it's not built with community, it's not for community.
So I really just wanted to end this with a picture of Broderick because I loved him. And one of his quotes, "What are we doing differently today to stem the tide of racism? It has to be all of us together. As we are all together, we make progress." And I think that we sometimes look at Wyandotte County as navigating two different cities in one county when really we're all one county. And if one of the things that working with the Poor People campaign has taught me that when you lift from the bottom, everybody rises. So for us to do better for our county, we have to do better for everybody in our county.
And I think it's important to end with this because Broderick helped to deliver more than 150 of these presentations over the last 6
Yes.
years and was a primary partner with our H.E.A.T collaborative.
Finally, in our last slide is a call to action. You can like, follow, and share. We are Wyandotte. Yes, you can find us on Facebook. You can join the effort. We do have our H.E.A.T Community Action Board. It meets on the first Thursday of every month at 6:30 p.m. We are currently virtual, but hope to get back together soon. And you can host a H.E.A.T discussion. You'll just contact me at that email, and I would love to have a conversation with you.
And for anyone in the room who would like to have a copy of the H.E.A.T report or the comics, they are available here in the front.
Thank you all. We have a question from Commissioner McCune.
Thank you, Mayor. They're also available online. You can get them any day, anytime online. So don't forget to tell people to go out there because your We Are Wyandotte website is a phenomenal resource with everything that you have here plus more. And I really appreciate the presentation. You have reminded us again what a very large challenge we collectively have ahead of ourselves because this is not a pretty picture that we have collectively painted. And although your last slide gave some calls to action, I'm not going to ask you to do it here, but I am going to ask you if you'd follow up with some follow-up feedback to at least myself, if not the commission. I'd like to know, for a local government that is facing this challenge, what are 3 concrete action steps that local government could take right now, today, that would help move the ball in the direction we want to go? And for the local average citizen, that person who's not part of government, who's not part of anything other than they're living their best life in their neighborhood, if they're interested in helping to make progress, what are 3 concrete action steps that those citizens could take today that would help synergize and help the ball roll faster? We hope it's already rolling. We just want it to go faster. So, because sometimes when I confront this, I'm left with, oh my gosh, that's a huge problem. What can I do? And I come up with nothing. I don't know what to do. So I think the more that we can identify little chunks that governments and people can do, the better we're going to be able to help get this done. Thanks again for your work. It is very important.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank both of you, Donna and Kimberly, for presenting. I wasn't here for the entire presentation, but I'll go back and watch the rest of it. I actually used the H.E.A.T report. Obviously, this has evolved much more, but back in 2020 for grad school, I did some research on some policy recommendations in my urban policy class, and I used this as kind of a reference of kind of building that narrative and that story. And so I'm very, very much appreciative of the work that you all are doing. Kind of getting to what Commissioner McKiernan has alluded to within his question, there are cities like Evanston, right, for example, that have really taken on a more local approach to solve what has been and still is a federal government problem when it comes to redlining. Their particular program focuses on providing grants to descendants of those that have been victimized by redlining. I think about what's happening in North Carolina. I'm blanking on the city, and they kind of have like a reparations panel, right? And they're going to make some recommendations. I know across the river, there's also those discussions. So I'm curious for you all, has there been any conversation on those policy recommendations at the local level, right? I wish we controlled the banking system and had some influence over that. But I'm curious to see what you all's conversations have been and where that has led you.
So we're over time for the UG Public Health Department, and I don't want to overstep.
Yeah.
So really quickly, one of the major things, and is probably the first step that I would send in the response to Commissioner McKiernan, is to take a look at a robust policy, a lens by which, an evaluative system by which you make decisions around policy, especially policies that directly relate to the infrastructure of our communities, right? So what are the measurements that you put in place to ensure that that policy is not going to further harm and that it is going to start to repair the problems of the past? That would be the very, very first thing. And that's one of the things that has come up routinely as we've talked with community.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much, Mayor. This is great conversation. I hope we can have more. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just say, and you made a really profound statement, and you said, if it's not built with the community, it's not built for the community. And I'm really big on collaborations that involve, and it's really these issues, and Commissioner McKiernan hit on it. We can't solve this alone. It's going to take all of us, community, as well as your elected body, and not just the elected body you see here. It's going to take our entire county, along with our administrative staffs and our community, to find these real solutions that we're looking for. I've always advocated that we need to invest in the disinvested, and that's the people, the places, and the programs that need the investment the most. And why is that so important? And I really hit on it, and you answered yes. It is costing people their lives here in Wyandotte County. When you talk about access to good services and resources that can provide the opportunity for people to have healthier lifestyles. The key to this body here is policy. And there's a task force that some of your commissioners are involved in that really allow that conversation that needs to be had, not just to have listening tours or community conversations or strategy sessions, but to bring forth real recommendations that this body here today can bring forward to bring about the change that our community deserves to see, that can hopefully improve the quality of life for all our residents. And you said it equitably in a just way. And so those are the things that I really think that we all need to do. And I think the question was asked by Commissioner McKiernan, and I think for me, I only have two of them as a community, and not just, I know that your commission, your mayor and your staff and your administration, we're going to do what we need to do to make a difference. But everybody in Wyandotte County needs to know they're the difference. We all have to come together in unity to find these real solutions because it's all vital. And there's a lot of resources there that we just need to better correlate in a way that can improve people's lives. Because ultimately what's concerning to me, when you look at those 19 detriments, what bothers me is that people are losing their lives, and the disenfranchisement, the disinvestment really impacts the poor, people of color the most. And so we have a real opportunity today moving forward to do what needs to be done to turn the tide and make a Wyandotte County that works for everybody in an equitable way. So thank you so much, and Merry Christmas to you. I believe that we have the health department on deck. As soon as they're ready, they'll come forward. As they come forward, I'd just like to announce to the public that tonight we are here to represent, or at least allow the representative, the Wyandotte County Board of Health. They're going to present a semi-annual update to your Board of Commissioners. And as soon as the director is ready, I'll let her start that portion of her presentation. So thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you so much for having
If I
us
may,
here.
real quick, we need to do a roll call, Mayor, and call the meeting to
I'm
order.
sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we start, clerk, can you take it from there and give us the roll call we need?
Absolutely, sir. Good evening. A meeting of the Board of Health of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County in Kansas City, Kansas will be conducted in a hybrid format on Thursday, December 15th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the Commission Chambers of the Municipal Office Building, 701 North 7th Street, Kansas City, Kansas, regarding a Board of Health semi-annual update. Roll call. Davis.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Burrows.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Johnson. We have an absence memo from Commissioner Kane, Markley,
Here.
Stites, and Garner.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, commissioners. First thing I need to do is thank Ms. Young and Ms. Weaver for their presentation tonight, but more importantly for the work they are doing. They are teaching your health department how to think about racism differently, how to work on racism differently, how to partner with community differently. And we take our cue from them, quite frankly. And so the work they are doing is foundational to the work we are doing. And you're going to see the themes of what they spoke about show up here tonight and what we're going to speak about. So for those listening online, if you're not familiar, Kansas state statute dictates that local boards of commissioners are also local boards of health. And so when we convene you as the Board of Health, what we're really asking, you don't have a different set of powers. We're asking you to put on your health hats. We're asking you to think about and prioritize public health first above all else this evening. So tonight it is my great pleasure to bring forward to you an update of our community health improvement plan. Myself and my health department colleague, Ms. Kamen, will be providing some kind of foundational information to get you all up to speed. But the majority of this evening or the next hour, you will be hearing from some of our most core partners that have taken on the onus of this work, that have stepped up, that are doing this with us and leading this. And so you'll get an opportunity to hear from them what's happening on the ground and how we're operating. And then we'll kind of segue and let you know what's coming in 2023. Can somebody start my presentation? Yes, thanks, Monica. Wonderful. I'm going to skip that. I'm going to try to move quickly so we can give most of our time to our guests here this evening. A quick reminder, which I think our friends have already done beautifully for us, is that public health is so very much more than what's in your health department, and it's also so very much more than what's provided in clinical care. Public health and what informs health are primarily these things in our communities, these systems, which are our housing, education, transportation, employment systems, right? Not going to spend any more time on that because I think you all understand it. But that's why you see within our community health improvement plan for Wyandotte County, the 4 topic areas that we have: jobs and education, healthcare access, safe and affordable housing, and violence prevention. And as a reminder, these are the 4 topic areas that came out of our 2017 and 2018 community health assessment. So these topics were chosen not in a vacuum. These topics were chosen after a great deal of looking at the evidence and data, and also speaking with community members and collecting from them what the primary barriers to achieving health are. Another reminder that what we call the 3 lenses of our CHIP are poverty, racism, and ACEs or trauma. And so within each of these 4 topic areas, we are constantly thinking about how is poverty, racism, and trauma showing up, and are our strategies specifically deployed to offset the harms that come from poverty, racism, and trauma. Want to provide a little bit of a reminder that we have a very serious structure in place for our community health improvement plan. The health department spends a lot of time thinking about how to make collective work actually successful. It's pretty easy to bring a group of people together, and it's much harder to see successful outcomes come from that collective work. And so we've built a structure that includes a steering committee that's comprised of a lot of really important voices in the public health space in Wyandotte County. We have a health equity subcommittee to make sure we are prioritizing anti-racism in our work. The health department provides the backbone support. So this is not the health department's CHIP. If you're newer to CHIP, it's pretty easy to think that this is the health department's plan. It is not. This is a plan. We did not decide on any of the strategies in the plan alone as a health department. We chose it in coordination with all of our partners. And then we have worked to set up a structure where we have 4 different action teams, 1 for each of these topic areas that are really led by what we call lead agencies, which are the guests we have here this evening. And they are the ones doing the work on the ground, along with our subcommittee members and the 100 other partners that contribute to our CHIP year over year. The reason we put such a structure in place, again, is because we're following what's called the collective impact model. This is our guidepost for ensuring that the work we're doing collectively leads to success, right? So we're really working on having a shared plan, sharing data and measurement. We all have agreed upon set metrics by which we measure our work. We have mutually reinforcing activities. So what we're doing at our own agencies are reinforcing the plan. We have constant communication mechanisms, and we have a backbone agencies, which is the health department. And again, these are all those mechanisms by which we make sure we're holding one another accountable, because this CHIP will not be successful unless there are ways to ensure that we are keeping each other accountable, that we are responsible for making this work a reality. And lastly, before we talk about some outcomes here, I want to give a nod to the funding. We collectively, the 100 partners that participate in this CHIP, work really hard to bring resources to bear for this work. I do want to let you all know there is not a single general fund dollar currently that funds any portion of the Community Health Improvement Plan. We were incredibly grateful and fortunate to be able to receive some ARPA funds this year. First time the UG has really invested in our CHIP, but primarily our funding comes from grants that we go after, from the Health Forward Foundation, Wyandotte Health Foundation, Reach Health Foundation, United Way of Greater Kansas City. So we are working hard to put the ARPA dollars that we have received from you to work. You're going to hear about that this evening. And then lastly, I want to really recognize the fact that the agencies who have stepped up have done so before there was any money or resources available. And so the greatest portion of resources that contribute to the CHIP are contributed by organizations who are providing in-kind staff time, who are doing this work because they believe in it and because it's part of their organization's mission as well. So a lot of the CHIP is happening on a shoestring. We're working really hard to make sure that we have a strong economic foundation to do this work. But we need you to know that it is almost exclusively grant funded. Last thing before we throw to our partners, Ms. Kamen, our CHIP coordinator in the health department, is going to speak just a little bit on how we measure our success, how we are ensuring that we are evaluating what we are doing and improving in real time.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Julianne, and good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Susan Kamen, and I'm the Community Health Improvement Plan Coordinator at the Health Department. So in the next few slides, I'll share a little bit about how we evaluate our CHIP. We use the Community Checkbox Evaluation System, which is a system out of KU, which was designed specifically to evaluate community collaborative efforts such as our CHIP. And so, as you know, our CHIP identifies long-term goals for health improvement in our community. Some examples are increasing median household income, increasing health insurance coverage rates in our community. And we know that making an impact in those long-term goals will take time. It will take coordinated resources. It will take partners across all sectors really pointed towards those same goals and working in tandem. So in recognizing that, we document these activities that you see on your slide. On the slide at the top, you'll see the type of activity. Underneath is a specific example from our CHIP initiative. And then at the bottom, you'll see the total number of activities recorded for that category through the course of our initiative. And so I'll just go through quickly some of these types of activities and the examples, starting with community changes. So community changes are new or modified systems, policies, programs that are implemented and brought to our community. This is really what we're going after and what we want to see as a result of the work of our CHIP. And so an example of that is from our healthcare access team, which they launched in partnership with the Department of Transportation, Whiteville HealthLink, which is a program that provides fare-free rides to safety net clinic patients. Moving on to community actions, these are activities that members of our group work on in order to support those community changes and systems that we want to see. And so an example of that is the Housing Summit, and you'll see that's our largest category of activities, and that just speaks to the amount of work and time that it takes to bring about those community changes. And then services provided, which is self-explanatory. It's really the provision of any service or good in our community. And so an example of that is from our violence prevention team and our partners at Thrive, who provided a couple of youth development curriculums in our schools. Then information dissemination, which is the delivery of information through different channels. The example there is from our jobs and education team. They put together an industry-driven career guide and distributed that to businesses and high schools in our community. And just a note on the total there, it is likely under-documented, but that total is counting activities of information dissemination, not necessarily the number of people reached through those activities. That in fact is a lot larger. With that example, I know our team reached to over 700 businesses in all high schools in Wyandotte County. And then lastly, resources generated. This could be the acquisition of funds through in-kind, donations, grants that support our efforts. And so the example there is a partnership with the Department of Transportation to support a couple of different programs like the Health Link and then the Edwardsville Microtransit Route. And both of those are from our healthcare access and jobs and education teams. All right. There it is. All right, so this next graph that we have here is showing the total running number of activities through the course of our initiative. So you see we'll have documented 754 activities. And the first bracket that you see on the screen highlights really the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And you'll note that during that time, we were able to continue maintaining levels of engagement and implementing CHIP activities, despite how difficult it was for all of us in our community. And I think that just speaks to the level of commitment that our partners have to the work and the passion for this work from the people in this room. And it also speaks to the significant structure of our CHIP, which I think is in place to help us and enable us to do the work. And then that second bracket that you see there on the graph points to those ARPA dollars that we received. And really you see that uptick of activities right after that time, which just speaks to the good use of the funds going into support capacity and also specific projects through our initiative. Oh no. It's being a little laggy on my end. Apologies about that. Yeah, I keep vibrating. There it is. All right, thank you. And then the last graph that we have here is populations prioritized through CHIP activities. Not all of our activities prioritize populations, but when we do, we're most often prioritizing youth, adults with low income, individuals with limited English proficiency, and children. And again, this just goes to show, I think, the populations, but also our partners in the work knowing to elevate the concerns and the voices of these very important groups in our community. And so that was a very high level overview of some of the activities that we track through the work of the CHIP. And this is just to help us know how we're making an impact towards those long-term goals that we've set out at the beginning of the plan. And so now I'll transition over to this next part of our presentation, which you'll get to hear directly from some of our lead partners in the work and some examples specifically from the CHIP teams. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Greg Kendall, President of the Wyandotte Economic Development Council. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you all for having us this evening. I'm here along with my colleague, Monica Breedy, who oversees our Workforce Solutions and Business Retention Program. I want to thank you all for your time this evening. I particularly want to do a shout out to Julianne and Susan and the team in the Public Health Department. The fact that they are engaged in the community in such progressive ways is unique. I would say that the relationship that we have with your Public Health Department as an economic development organization is incredibly unique among our peers across the country. The relationship that we have is special, and I think it's a good thing. When we had the pandemic, because of the relationship we had already developed with your health department, we felt comfortable sharing business data, HR contacts with companies that are largely proprietary information that we've collected from 600 or 700 companies across the community. And we're able to prioritize those based on those who are food handling companies, those who are touching food processing, and to be able to help identify and make those connections around that mobile health department piece of it. That while it may not have solved every problem, it connected the businesses to the health department in a faster way than we might otherwise have done if we didn't have a relationship. That's just one example of how the relationship had already started. And I will preface some of my comments by saying that what you see on the screen, in some ways, we have better alignment with your health department along how we do economic development and how it has incorporated into economic development than we have often, I shouldn't say often, in some ways through our economic development efforts as a whole, which I think says a lot about this organization and about Julianne and the people in the health department and the passion they have for finding new ways to get the information out to a variety of different populations. We have fully incorporated the CHIP into our daily work. What started out as a business retention issue, a way of solving for the lack of talent in the community and what were causing those challenges, which you now see those 5 key areas are what we focus on a day-to-day basis. Now it's part of every conversation that we have, whether it's a company coming into the community, it's a company that wants to stay in the community. It's about talent. It's about what are the challenges to getting that talent into the community. And sometimes it is just a common sense question of saying, do you know anything about your people? What are the challenges that they're having? Do they have a transit problem? Do they have a language issue? Are they having a childcare issue today? Are there reasons for why folks aren't showing up or why you can't retain that employee? And a lot of that is bottled up into these kinds of issues. And Monica's going to hit on a number of these as well. But sometimes it is just a question of saying to the HR department or to the company, ask some questions of your people to see what stresses may be going on in their lives so that we can address those issues and not have to completely find new talent. The 5 key areas that we're focused on drive an overarching Y80C goal, which is to raise the median household income to that of the state of Kansas. Now, recently, the most recent data that we just saw today, the county has surpassed the $50,000 median household income level to $52,366 for the first time in history, versus the state at $61,091, which is the closest gap we've also seen in the history of us keeping records. This is a great thing. And while the county is seeing increases and we've seen some market steps forward, we must keep identifying new strategies, messaging, and partnerships to continue to shrink that gap. In the last 30 days, there have been over 9,700 job postings, largely potentially tied to seasonal changes in Wyandotte County alone, with healthcare topping the list. That has not changed over the last 3 years, an unemployment rate of about 3.5%. The challenge isn't availability of opportunity. Our challenge often rests in the barriers to employment around childcare, criminal history, language, educational attainment, and transportation. Monica is going to give the bulk of the specific outreach efforts, but I'm going to start by giving a quick update on the child care initiative to increase access to quality and affordable childcare. This subcommittee is led by the Family Conservancy, and I cannot commend that the work we do is not that just of the EDC. We have a platform in which to tell you about what's going on, but there are many, many agencies, businesses, individuals, volunteers, anybody who has passion for any one of these areas is welcome to be at our table. You do not need to be an investor of the EDC in order to be a participant in this discussion. So I lead as a staff person for the EDC, the Child Care Initiative, but the Family Conservancy is really our guiding star when it comes to this discussion. This past year, despite a number of challenges, we had enough quality childcare prior to the pandemic to meet about 33% of the needs in the county. That's 33% of the need. After the pandemic, we dropped to 26% of the need. So we have both a crisis of availability for those that need childcare and a small business sector in crisis as well. Despite the challenges, this year the subcommittee held the first childcare summit, which engaged providers, elected officials, and businesses. It was during the summit that we also launched the Raising WICO campaign that will serve as our platform for messaging around this issue tied to policy and communications. Among the bright spots is Kids on the Go Learning Center opening in the recently vacated childcare building at the Kansas School for the Blind. This partnership allows for 66 infants, toddlers, and preschool children to enroll in quality childcare. And in a meeting just today, we had a discussion with legislators and folks from across the state that are trying to understand the Kansas Employer Child Care Tax Credit and how that was legislation that was changed this past legislative session, but we're having some struggle in understanding some of the nuances. And so this group is working towards figuring that out. And then how do we communicate that to businesses? How do we get them to use it? And how do we use that to then benefit Wyandotte Countyans who need childcare? And we're in the process of identifying which companies that we'd like to have be part of a roundtable discussion around this childcare issue. It's time to move it from a discussion among a nonprofit organization and a business organization to that of the businesses to understand how do we actually execute and implement a greater number of quality full-day childcare slots in the county. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Monica Breedy to talk about the other 4 key areas and give you some examples of what we're doing in those areas.
Hi, I'm Monica Breedy, as Greg said, Senior Director of Workforce Solutions and Business Retention. And I've been a key part of the CHIP since I've been with WYADC for the past year. And I will tell you that prior to this, I was with the state and I served 4 counties, and I was always drawn to Wyandotte County because they were looking at economic development as a whole picture instead of just strictly a business issue, which is one of the reasons why I was excited to take the position here. So I'm going to first talk about language, our business ESL program, which is a partnership with Kansas City, Kansas Community College and our businesses. Currently, we're serving 3 businesses that they have an instructor that comes in that overlaps a first shift and a second shift. Those employees that are part of this program come off the floor an hour early. They stay for an hour later. Their employer pays for their time while they're there. The second shift comes in an hour early, waits to go on the floor an hour after being there as well. We have businesses waiting to be part of this program. And what the barrier is we don't have enough instructors. So this is my plug. If anybody's looking for a part-time gig, to apply with KCC to be a part-time ESL instructor. You do not have to be multilingual to be an instructor, because that ESL program is reaching all the languages, not just Spanish. All the languages that are represented here in Wyandotte County. That success with the language program is that they have currently served up to 45 employees with a 90% proficiency attainment. So they've increased their English by 90% since being in the program. Next, we'll talk about the criminal history fair chance hiring. So our criminal history program is focused on really 2 things, looking for those employers that are willing to be a second chance employer. And we recently held a roundtable for those employers trying to overcome any issues they might have with being a second chance employer. Also, we are creating a logo for those employers to have on their website and their paperwork to show that they are a friendly second chance employer, and people will be encouraged to hire or apply there. Also with criminal history, there is legislation that's going into place this year that is actually started last year, but they're going to be voting on it this year, hopefully, for automated expungement. And what the automated expungement means is that it's going to help those that have a minor infraction or minor criminal history, misdemeanors on their record, that those misdemeanors can be expunged and or hidden from public view. So it will no longer be a barrier to employment for them. And we do have a 1-pager if anybody's interested in that, and I can get that sent out to you regarding that. Then we also have our post-secondary education, which is probably our busiest sector of the jobs in education. This past year, we have one of the big successes that we had is we did tours for all the high schools. We've done 5 of the 9 high schools so far. We're going to hit the other 4 high schools in the spring, where we did tours, not just regular field trips, but tours for students, mostly juniors and seniors, to go visit different industries here in Wyandotte County, to show them that they have a great opportunity here in Wyandotte County with employers in their own backyard with great wages. Some success stories out of that is I know of 4 students right now that have already secured their summer internships and summer jobs as a result of those tours. And we're not talking about just a $10 an hour job. These were $18 an hour jobs that those employers will then get them on the path for training to have higher education to continue along those paths. There was also students that received, 1 student from every high school received a $500 scholarship from Kansas City, Kansas Community College as a result of that as well. The other part is that we have created in partnership with UG, and we also copied it or grew from a previous healthcare career guide that was generated a couple of years ago. And we created the industry-driven career guide, which all of you have received this back in October. And this career guide was distributed to all of the high schools, as well as in the middle schools, as a PDF and as a printed copy.
So this is a great document for those students to be able to look at it and see what kind of jobs are available here in Wyandotte County, the education that they needed and the wages that they can earn. Our last one is transportation. Did I already pass it? Okay, transportation, which was already kind of spoken to, that we have we collaborated with the health department and UG's Department of Transportation for the micro transfer for Edwardsville to serve the Edwardsville Industrial Park, and for those Edwardsville residents to be able to get into the main transit line, meeting at the 101 at the Walmart and the Legends. So one last thing I wanted to talk about is our Made Men collaboration. That Made Men is an organization that helps folks with trying to get their GED that may not be comfortable with going through the regular education line through Kansas City, Kansas Community College. They currently have 42 students enrolled to get their GED, and that all goes into effect in helping and raising our household income, which has happened, as Greg stated. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to our colleagues with the healthcare access team.
Thank you. And good evening. My name is Patrick Salee. I'm the CEO of Vibrant Health. We're a community health center here in Wyandotte County. We operate 3 locations, medical, dental, behavioral health services, and we'll see close to 20,000 patients next year, primarily low-income families, all or most in Wyandotte County. So we've been participating in the healthcare access component of the CHIP for since the beginning, for 5 years, and are extremely proud to be part of this group. A couple of key points, and I'll turn it over to Robert to share all the great work that he and the team are doing. But a couple of reasons why this matters to us is that we know when we think about health rankings and health outcomes, and I know that the Public Health Department and the Commission talk a lot about where we are in health rankings. We think about that number a lot, but the factors that contribute to that, 80% of them happen outside of the clinic. So we can be really, really good at healthcare in the clinic space, but we're impacting a relatively small sliver of those factors. And so our opinion is we have to really care about the other 80% and get involved in the other 80% and do that work, also support that work that the important partners of this effort are doing in order to move the needle. And what the health department is led on in this is building a long-term plan. This is not a 5 years, a 5-year plan, but it doesn't have impact in 5 years to the degree we all want. This is generations at a time. And I commend the leadership of the health department for the way they've facilitated this to include hundreds of partners and all sorts of community members and lots of long-term impact. So we're proud to be a part of it, and thanks for the opportunity to share this evening our small role.
Thank you, Patrick. My name is Robert Gibson. I work at Vibrant Health. I serve as the program coordinator for community and clinical initiatives, and I help to lead our efforts with the healthcare access portion of the CHIP. And so, as Patrick mentioned, we're proud to be a partner of the CHIP and help lead in this work. And so with the healthcare access portion of the CHIP, in order to move this effort forward, there has been 5 strategies that have been identified. And within those strategies, there are subcommittees committed to this work. And so those 5 strategies are healthcare capacity with a focus on transportation and care coordination, health literacy, which is focused on developing media campaigns, targeting local health access issues. Additionally, there's healthcare funding, which is focused on Medicaid expansion, advocacy, and health insurance enrollment efforts. Additionally, there's school health, which is focused on increasing health services tailored to youth in school settings. And last but not least is the education to employment pipeline, which is focused on healthcare careers for Wyandotte County first generation and BIPOC students. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about some highlights, some key highlights of that work over the course of our involvement with the CHIP. And so related to the healthcare literacy portion of the CHIP, there was developed and implemented a health literacy communications campaign. This campaign highlighted the quality and diversity of healthcare providers in Wyandotte County. It launched at the tail end of the pandemic, so there was some challenges there, but despite those challenges, we still were able to reach 80,000 households in 4 additional languages beyond English. Those languages were Burmese, Nepali, Spanish, and Swahili. And that's important because we want to make sure that these efforts are reaching all residents in Wyandotte County. And so that was an effective campaign, and we're continuing that work even now. We were awarded some ARPA funds recently to continue that work with an additional health communications campaign. Also, there was a health careers guide that was developed, and that was in collaboration with the Jobs and Education team led by the Wyandotte Economic Development Council, as you just heard from Monica and Greg. And so that partnership helped to create this guide, and that guide focused on increasing diversity in healthcare by connecting students in Wyandotte County to post-secondary resources in Wyandotte County. So the goal is not only to empower the next generation and increase diversity in workforce, but to keep those students here so they can be the next leaders and add to our economy as we develop our business and economic sectors as well. Moving on, next slide, please. One more, sorry. And so also related to our care communication, care coordination portion and strategy, there was collective insurance enrollment efforts that resulted in a total of 248 new applications for Medicaid, Marketplace, and SNAP just in 2022. And that was in partnership with many of our community partners, such as El Centro and the Community Health Council of Wyandotte County, amongst others. Additionally, we're continuing this work around Medicaid by focusing on Medicaid re-enrollment efforts. As you may have heard, with the public health emergency waiver expiring soon in the next months, there's going to be a need to really educate and advocate for Medicaid re-enrollment. And so we're now continuing that work by working with our community partners to spread the word and educate our community members around the process for Medicaid re-enrollment and how they can continue to have their eligibility. And last but not least, we helped to launch the WYCO HealthLink program, which is a non-emergency medical transportation pilot. This was made possible through ARPA funds that were approved by the commission, and we thank you for your support. And this collaboration is an effort between the UG Health Department, the UG Department of Transportation, and also Vibrant Health. And currently we're collaborating with 8 local clinics, some of which are Family Healthcare, SWOPE Clinic, Healthcare, KU Medical Center, the Landon Center on Aging, Duchesne Clinic, Mercy and Truth Clinic, and also the JDoc Student Run Clinic at KU Medical Center. And we're very proud to work with those healthcare centers to provide transportation and eliminate access to care as a barrier for folks in Wyandotte County, our residents, to receive quality care. And I want to end by saying that there are many other things that we've helped to accomplish as a part of this work, such as voter engagement, advocacy efforts. As I mentioned, we're focusing on Medicaid, re-enrollment, Medicaid expansion efforts, amongst other things. But all of this work could not be possible, as Patrick mentioned, without collaborating with our other community partners. And I think the CHIP really represents that we're better together. So as we all work together, we can actually move things forward for our residents and produce the results and changes that they would like to see and they need to see in our community. So thank you for your time. And I'm now going to pass it on to our violence prevention team.
Before you do, real quick, I know there's a partnership that you all have with our fire department. Just real quickly, could you share that partnership and that outcome?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. That partnership that the mayor is referring to is our Wyandotte County Care Connections program, and it consists of a partnership between Vibrant Health and the Kansas City, Kansas Fire Department. And so a nurse practitioner from Vibrant Health is partnering with a paramedic from the fire department, and they literally provide at-home care for those who need it in the community. So we recognize that not only is transportation a limitation or a barrier to care, but some folks do not have insurance, they're uninsured, or they just are not connected to providers in the area. So this program helps to eliminate that barrier to care and actually help coordinate care for folks to actually get connected with local health clinics and safety net clinics in the area. And we're very proud of that work. We've only been working with this program for a year. So we have a lot of opportunities for growth, and we're interested in continuing to fund this work for years to come. So Did you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, to give a little bit more background on it, and thank you, Mayor, for the question. The Vibrant was able to fund this program initially through COVID response, COVID stimulus money we received from the federal government. So we're funding the unified government to hire an EMT to partner on this project, and we're hiring the APRN that works, and they're going out to people that have been identified by the fire department to help with a range of issues that help eliminate the number of trips to the ER, but also the number of trips from the fire department or the police department to the residents. So early on in this program, we were seeing examples of where people were calling the fire department multiple times a day, not just lots of times per month, but multiple times a day. And with the intervention of these two staff members, we were able to eliminate that to once a month or less, which is a number of trips from the fire department out and any others, and it improves access and opportunity for those people. So it really, while not a huge number of people are being seen through this service, the impact for those individuals is profound.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brady Alexander. I am the Director of Prevention for MOXA.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Maddie Dumble, Prevention Specialist at MOXA.
This evening, we want to talk about the 4 strategies that were assigned to MOXA. Our 4 strategies include the H.E.A.T, which means community prevention through environmental design, youth engagement and justice system relations, youth fatality review, and the norms change. The first strategy that we want to talk about is we call it H.E.A.T, but crime prevention through environmental design. That is something that we use, it's a principle that we use to talk about changes to the physical environment that will help improve appearance of safety of the shared spaces. There are 6 principles that help us with H.E.A.T. The first principle is, can I see others and can others see me? One of the best things and the best ways to prevent violent crime or just crime in general is to make sure that you have adequate lighting and to make sure that shrubs are at a decent height so that if there are other people in the space, they can see you. They can see what's going on. Another way to prevent violent crime or crime in general will be your signage. Do you know where to go? Are the streets clearly marked? And entrances and exits. Also identifiers, knowing what is the space for. So if this is a park, can I tell that this is a park? And other identifiers in neighborhoods. The other principle is this space maintained? I know over the years, sometimes spaces do not get adequate maintenance. So a lot of times, making sure that we give maintenance to areas that are heavily in use or either being ignored will help prevent violent crime. The next principle is my neighborhood connected? It's more than just physical changes, but we want to take a look at different programs that you can implement in your community to get the youth active, different programs that you can implement in your community to keep your families engaged. And the last principle is there a sense of community? Keeping in mind with all of the principles that we have identified for H.E.A.T, we created a toolkit to help the neighbors and the families that live in that area to go around and check for different things like missing light bulbs, broken glass, just a variety of different things, and then provided resources where neighbors can call or citizens can call and say, okay, I've noticed the light out and it's a pivotal light, we need it so that we can make sure that our community is safe. The next portion, I think I'm gonna go back to the slide. We want to talk about norms change. Okay, we'll pass to Jamila.
Thank you. So Jamila Watson-Thompson with the University of Kansas, and today I'm representing Thrive, which is a coalition of over 40 partners that also partner with CHIP in the violence prevention work in the health department. And so as Brandy was noting, a large part of what's necessary is making sure that across levels. If we're taking a public health approach, that we're thinking about individual level strategies, community level strategies, society level strategies. And so part of what we have the opportunity to do through Thrive, which is part of the Youth Violence Prevention Center, Kansas City, is to think about an individual level strategy through Revive. Revive is the hospital violence prevention program, so that if a young person ends up in the emergency room at the University of Kansas Health System, then a network of supports get deployed based upon a subset of our Thrive partners. That response is led by an ad hoc group against crime, also along with the health department and community corrections, and of course, MATSA. Then our goal is to work with that young person and family while in the hospital, but most importantly, to stay with that young person and family when they leave the hospital so that we can address those factors that got them there so that they don't return. Ultimately, we want to reduce readmission to the hospital of our young people and to keep our young people alive. Additionally, additional strategies that we are supporting as it relates to the youth justice relations part of the work really relates to a couple of strategies that subsets of partners are also supporting. So we're currently very actively engaged in developing a Wyandotte County Youth Court, and that's in partnership with the DA's office, as well as the Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools and other Thrive collaborators. And that is, once again, we're wanting to help to keep young people out of the court systems and out of a trajectory. And so in that regard, through Youth Court, young people are trained in the justice system, and they actually serve all roles of the court, including from judge to jury. And then the sanctions that are provided to those young people for low-level offenses only that are referred based on the DA's office, then are based upon a jury of peers that identify those sanctions. Additionally, we're really wanting to make sure that we're training our young people to be youth leaders. And so in that regard, for over 50 young people in our high schools, we have supported the Ignite Me curriculum in partnership with Youth Revive. And that curriculum really looks at how we support civic education and youth leadership development. And so those are a few of our strategies that relate to some of the justice relations and youth engagement components.
All right. So we kind of already talked about the community by design assessment tool for neighborhoods, but we can go ahead and move into the positive norms change campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. So our positive social norms change campaign, we worked with 3 different youth fatality review boards, Thrive, KC-PAL, and Young Women on the Move. We got about 30 participants. We did, what would you call it? Sticky note board, whiteboard. We gathered data. We are currently at a phase with that where we are analyzing that data. What we did was we asked them what their perceived violence was, how they saw it, how it presented themselves in their lives, and how it and what supports they had in their community to protect them from early childhood or adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. Right now we've got that data compiled, but we are moving to the data analysis stage with that to go into like putting together a campaign to like highlight the positive. It's an evidence like focus study. A good example of what positive norms campaigns are. Think about prom, how people would put like a wreckage or a car wreckage and say don't drink and drive, and these are the consequences. With our positive norms campaign, our goal is to instead talk to the youth. We take actual data, actual perceived regularities in their schools, and we go 86% of these schools don't drink. So with our social norms campaign, we're looking at violence factors, perceived violences, and community supports to put together a positive social norms campaign. And that is social norms. Thank you.
Hello, I am Cecilia Jones, Executive Director with Cross Lines Community Outreach, and I'm here with my colleague Rachel Russell. And we are very privileged to be the lead agency for the safe and affordable housing part of the CHIP. As several of my counterparts mentioned, we were just very appreciative to the work of the health department. Both Julianne and Susan have been amazing. And the fact that housing is identified in the CHIP, I think is huge for our community. Our community has clearly shown that housing is healthcare. We see that in our day-to-day lives at Crosslines, and we see how much somebody's access to safe and affordable housing directly impacts their health. So I will briefly go over the 4 strategies that we have been. I will first pause to say that Crosslines, prior to this year, we were just we were one of the partner agencies, but Livable Neighborhoods had led this effort up until this year. So the beginning of this year, Livable Neighborhoods was ready to take a step back, and we were very honored to help lead what they accomplished in the first 3 years. So the areas of focus are unhoused populations, and we are unfortunately seeing a pretty drastic increase in our unhoused populations right now. Also, there's been tremendous work in the Community Land Trust, and we've also seen some fantastic work with supports for tenants and homeowners. And then finally, one of the initiatives that we're most excited about and hopeful to see some traction soon is the Landlord Risk Mitigation Fund. So again, I'm very glad to be here tonight. I'm going to turn this over to Rachel because she can tell you much more the detail of this.
Good evening, commissioners and mayor. Glad to be here with you all tonight to talk about the great work that the Safe and Affordable Housing Action Team is doing. I know we're close on time, so I'm going to do some quick highlights, and I'm happy to send additional information as well as documents as well to support what I've shared with you here tonight. So this first one is in relation to our priority unhoused populations. Crosslines, along with 30 other agencies as well as individuals, community members, has drafted a coordinated WICO homeless response plan. This response plan looks at things from a multitude of different levels, from the most immediate emergency needs that we have for our folks who are experiencing houselessness or homelessness in our community, from emergency shelter to restrooms and all of those things in that purview, all the way to long-term systemic changes. So how do we as a community both adopt immediate needs, but how do we both adopt things that will create long-term change where we are changing the narrative moving forward for how we address homelessness in Wyandotte County? Some of our goals, now that we've drafted this plan, or our next step, not our goal, but it is also a goal, is in 2023 is to present this plan and market this plan to the community in numerous ways. And so we look forward to this continued conversation. Most of the information within this plan has looked at both our neighboring communities across the water, but also those in Lawrence and Topeka. And we most recently took a trip to Oklahoma City to look at some tiny homes. And so there has been a lot of research, a lot of comparisons of what other communities have done and what they've worked in both like communities, but also places where things have been innovative. The next strategy or the next priority highlight that I would like to share falls within the education of tenants and homeowners. And this is one piece that we are very excited and have been very privileged to partner with Kansas Legal Services as well as our community education team at the health department, who has really facilitated these conversations to ensure that tenants, from the moment that they're getting ready to rent a place to potentially, unfortunately, being in the eviction process, that they have the information that they need at their fingertips. Both there is a document for this, as well as it is also housed on the Kansas Legal Services website, as well as resources. And to your right of you, you can see some of the pieces that are a part of that toolkit. Moving on to the next ones. All right. So this next highlight is I am excited as someone who participated in what
the first year of the Safe and Affordable Housing or peer learning groups, is the concept of a community land trust. And if you're not familiar, CHWC has the first community land trust here in Wyandotte County and really leads this work for our action team. This opportunity makes home ownership more accessible for some folks who may struggle to access home ownership through the traditional route. And so we are excited to share that the first community land trust home, as well as additional homes, are now on the market through the great work of our friends at CHWC. And we look forward to, in 2023, having the first homeowner in that land trust. And I know that that is one of Megan Painter's that's where she feels that she will see the most accomplishment from this project and really how it will benefit our community. And then lastly, just something that our action team has facilitated as a way to ensure that all community members have access to the different things that are taking place in our community around housing, because as you all know, there are lots of things happening, is we host an annual WYCO Housing Summit. This year, we had the privilege to host it at the Hy-Vee Arena, where 96 participants attended and engaged in the many different topics from LGBTQ plus housing at our spot. We talked about housing as healthcare, because that is the work that we are doing within the CHIP. But we also talked about potential strategies and policies that the UG could adopt in future years to ensure that housing is accessible to all residents. And so this was a really exciting time, as well as you see in the bottom left. I could not pull off any of these great things without the collaborators, whom of which you heard from tonight as well. So I will close with this. I am just so thankful and grateful for the opportunity to serve in this position, but really I'm more grateful for the people that do the work in and out every day to ensure that access to housing is available to all WYCO residents. And we could not do this work alone here at this table, even with those in the room. And so I'm just grateful for that. And I will pass it back over to Julianne, who will close us out.
I will, but before I do so, can you please join me in thanking these incredible community partners who are here tonight? Honestly, we are serious when we say there is little to nothing the health department can do alone in this community, and these folks have stepped up in the most incredible ways imaginable. So to kind of lead us out here, I'm gonna flip through these quickly. We're about to start this again, right? So the CHA and CHIP are one continuous cycle, right? We go through a CHA, we assess the health of our community, we conduct a community health assessment. Those findings are what help us prioritize what goes into then the CHIP, or the community health improvement plan. So even though we've been conducting the CHIP this year, we've spent the last 6 months beginning our CHA, because we need to start the cycle again, because we're at the end of our 4th year. And so while we will continue this CHIP in its 4th year in 2023, we will also spend the year of 2023 creating the prioritization and the planning to create our 2024 brand new CHIP. So what that will look like is you are all going to see us again here in February or March. Our epidemiology team has done an incredible amount of surveying, pulling together primary and secondary data, hosted focus groups, and we are right now writing our CHA. So we're going to have a brand new community health assessment that's very robust that we will bring back before you in the next couple of months. And then we will be asking you all to engage with us in 2023 as we create the priorities for the 2024 CHIP. So thank you for your time tonight. In response to your initial question, Commissioner McKiernan, I think there are incredible ways, very concrete strategies to work on anti-racism work in the HEAT report that was brought before us. Our CHIP is one of the many, many opportunities to do so. And what you heard from our folks here tonight is we have concrete, actionable strategies we are deploying today. So we don't need to work at the 1,000-foot level forever. We can take this, and we have shovel-ready projects. So there are opportunities to engage, and I would encourage our community members to visit our CHIP dashboard to find those ways to engage, to connect with anyone at the health department or any of these partners. We're ready to engage you if you're ready to work with us. So thank you for your time. Thank you to our community and to our partners for being here.
Thank you all so much. These presentations were really good tonight, and I can't say it enough to say thank you for the presentations, the hard work that goes in. When you talk about improving people's lives and building safe and livable neighborhoods right here in Wyandotte County, The first half of that, what are the challenges? What are the causes? What are the solutions? And what is being done to round that out? We have a real opportunity as a community, your elected body, our staff, and more importantly, you, the community, and all these non-for-profits and stakeholders that really have a key in making Wyandotte County the type of place where we want to live, work, and raise a family, that have the types of amenities that are necessary. We have an opportunity at this body right here at the Unified Government. I challenge this commission to continue to do the hard work that needs to be done, and recognizing that we can do everything that needs to be done and create really a strong precedent that could be recognized nationally to address racism, race poverty, address poverty, homelessness, the inequities that exist that impact jobs, and the disinvestment and disenfranchisement, to where everybody that wants an opportunity and wants to work hard and wants to have that opportunity for success and an improved quality of life, they can have it right here in Wyandotte County. And so I'm excited about these opportunities. The potential exists. Real work is being done, but these are just the first steps. And so thank you all so much. I'm looking forward for as long as I'm your mayor. And I know this commission, they've made a commitment to work with you all as well to hopefully find real solutions to real problems that we know impact the lives of real people every day, because we can together, all of us collaborative, we can build the kind of Wyandotte County that we want and that can improve the quality of life for everybody. So thank you so much. We're going to move into our regular commission meeting after a short break. There are some technical issues that need to be addressed by staff to get us up to speed to make that presentation. So we will reconvene here. And I apologize to all those that are watching and all those that are maybe waiting, but this is a necessity. We're going to have to reconvene to about 7:35 promptly. So we will reconvene then. So I will make a motion to take us out of this Board of Health meeting. Clerk, I'm sorry, I need a motion.
Bynum, so moved.
Clerk, I need a roll call, please.
Roll call. Davis.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
States. Garner.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We will adjourn at 7:35.